I mean, for example, I was keeping an eye on the situation with the tour before I left, and the first 3 dates, which as far as I remember were Leipzig, Munich and Propling, is it? All sold out in advance, and
all shows on the tour were sold out except for 3, but they were only shy of selling out by 50 to 100 each.
That's incredible. And do you think it seems to be really smart marketing by Rock the Nation, that because they're behind Pagan Fest, behind this one, they're behind also the Metal Fest tour, which had Morbid Angel and Marduk just before Christmas. So they seem to have sewn up the market in that respect.
Well, it's clearly obvious to everybody that pagan stroke folk metal is outgrown the underground, and it's quite simply the biggest thing in that sort of middle size metal scene now in Europe, and it's the most exciting thing for kids.
But a lot of people
not just kids, but it's become a very exciting thing,
But a lot of people would be quite loath to lump you in with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would be, but it's not my job, I think that all of a sudden people are going, even if they loathe us and find us boring, which is generally, maybe some teenagers might, because as I said, in a very sort of instant world, they might find the fact that the songs are so long, they don't have the attention span for that. All of a sudden they realise, fuck, this band has been around for 17 or 18 years, they have 6 albums, all of a sudden we've gone from being ignored by UK Metal Hammer to being heralded as the godfathers of modern pagan metal in the space of 2 or 3 years.
Do you find that
strange, But as I said to people, every dog has its day, in a sense. What goes around comes around. And in 1993 or 94, we were singing about our culture and our heritage, and everybody was like, whatever, black and white satanic stuff. And we were it sort of come around to us in the sense that, like, oh, okay, people are paying some sort of, I don't know, historical and musical reverence or something. It's quite strange.
It's kind of funny that for the UK press, which has been traditionally very ignorant towards any kind of underground or extreme metal, that it takes this this pagan metal explosion, which does have a lot of gimmickry attached to it, which the UK press has always liked.
They love it. Yeah,
they have to embrace that, which has a gimmick, and then they associate you in with this, and that's when the coverage comes. But
when we always did okay in London, even back in the late 90s, we always sold okay and did okay. Maybe it's because we were cacophonous and then was Anthropy, but it is true. I mean, the English press loves a gimmick more so than any other press. I mean, look at Galhammer. If they were 3 fat guys from Hull, no one would pay them any attention, but they're not. They're 3 little Japanese girls. In German magazines, they're where they should be, which is on the 25th page for half a page. Yeah. English magazines, they're on the cover of all 3. Is it any good musically? I don't think so. I'm being fair play to them, but typical English press,
tabloid press.
I mean, it's they love that Turazas all wear fur and blood and jump around. I mean, that's Turazas have been doing that. I mean, we saw them play in Finland years and years ago, and they're doing that as well. Just in England, they love that. I don't know why. They're quite so motivated, as you said, by the gimmick.
Yeah, very much so.
But we sort of crept in the back door there, respect. All of a sudden, we better give this band kudos because they've been there from the beginning.
Yeah, and also being on Metal Blade helps as well.
Well, you've always got that Monomar thing, going on, and Metal Blade have a pull of bands that sell a lot of records in the UK. So and also a lot of bands who don't.
And if we're talking about the English press and the kind of the way they have this gimmickry approach.
Not all of them. There's a lot of good people there.
Yeah, sure, but I'm just saying, for us, growing up and seeing Karangas, and Kerrang.
Well, look at Metal Hammer in 1997 or 98. You would have seen No Doubt and Bush on the cover. In all honesty, and now it's a Monomar on the cover. That says it all. And that eventually, I remember reading a review in Metal Hammer of about 1999 of Wacken Open Air, and it was practically xenophobic.
Yeah,
it was actually it was one of the worst reviews, and it just said, look at all this rubbish, these stupid Germans with their denim vests and their moustaches and their mullets, aren't they so stupid they're not into Limp Bizkit and Korn and all this shit. And I remember meeting this guy. We played in London in 2000 with Immortal, and this guy from Kerrang came down. He wanted to do an interview, and I said, Abba was just like, why would I do an interview with Kerrang? It's never support Immortal. It won't make no difference to our sales. And he just stormed off, and I thought, fucking cool. And then I said to this guy, I said, look, you know, all the bands that you spend your time slagging off, like Wasp and all, that's what the magazine was built on.
Yeah.
And in 10 years' time, when you're out of a job, and then the trend has moved on, the stuff you think now, that you know, is the fucking bee's knees, whatever, is going to be slagged off by other people. And I'll tell you what, nobody in 10 years is going to be listening to Limp Bizkit. But people will still listen to The Last Command by Wasp. And they do. And I'm sure this man doesn't have a job, or else he's pretending to like him on a month now, you know?
Yeah, which is what Hammer did. They kind of reinvented themselves.
They had to, because they couldn't ignore it any longer. They couldn't ignore the fact that Nightwish sell 15,000 20,000 albums in the UK. You can't ignore power metal. You know, for years, this is a joke, blah 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 blah. You can't ignore the fact that people love it, you know, and they don't care about, I don't know, all these new metal bands anymore, you know. And
speaking about that, another market which has been very difficult for bands traditionally was America, and you're about to make your first trip to America for a tour.
Yeah.
I mean, but let's say that you probably can't expect to be averaging 1,000 plus a night. But what do you expect from the American tour? I mean, do you expect to? Do you think the audience in general there are as fascinated by this pagan metal movement?
Well, we played there once before, and it's a different thing. I mean, when we play in Europe, still we get metalheads, you know, people or old necro heads who know us from the old days, people with blasphemy shirts and bullet belts, and you know, like the old school metal image. And you go to America, and it's almost like everybody is into Dungeons and Dragons or something.
You said that when you played the one-off show, which
the power metal, it's an extension of power metal, the pagan folk metal, and a lot of people seem to be like, well, that's when we met. It's just my impression. Maybe it's not true. They seem to be more like gaming people and stuff. They weren't what I would call old school, and most of the Mexicans were old school kind of metalheads.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's six, 7 bands on the bill. They do expect an average of 600, 700.
They expect that
and
much.
in Canada, maybe 2,000 people or something. It's obvious it's taking off over there. Personally, from my point of view, I just don't want to be 40 years old and say, yeah, I did this band for 20 years. We did this and we did this, but we never toured America. So for me, it's just an experience. It's just all the things I've ever seen on TV or read about, I want to see firsthand. Breaking the band is not really my motivation. I'm not 19 anymore, 20 or 24. I don't make a living from this, so I'm not motivated to keep going back and back and back. Maybe you only get one chance at doing it. If this is it, then so be it. So I'm not really that motivated maybe by the same things as some people in other bands are, you know. It's not
well, just more as an experience, and as you say,
yeah, just a personal experience, you know. I mean, somebody's going to pay for you to go away, cover your expenses, pay you a small amount, and you're going to play in places you've never been to people you've never been to, and hopefully we bring some of our own fans. I don't know what the last album did. It did okay in America. We'll bring some of our own fans and maybe challenge a few others with some songs that aren't about beer and trolls.